Imagine you're 30 years old. You have a famous name, a receding hairline, and you are literally drowning in debt. You owe so much money to the banks of Rome that your creditors have guards at your door just to make sure you don't skip town. This was Gaius Julius Caesar. One day, while reading a biography of Alexander the Great, Caesar actually started crying. His friends asked, "Gaius, what's wrong?" He replied, "By my age, Alexander had conquered the world. And I've done nothing." But Caesar had a plan. In Rome, there were two ways to get rich and powerful: be born into it, or steal it through politics. Caesar chose both. He spent his family's last coins, and a lot of borrowed ones, to buy the favor of the Roman public. He threw the most insane gladiatorial games anyone had ever seen. He fed the poor. He was essentially the Mr. Beast of ancient Rome, but with a hidden agenda. He wasn't just being nice, he was buying votes. But before he could conquer Rome, he had to survive the Mediterranean. While sailing to Rhodes, Caesar was kidnapped by Cilician pirates. These guys were the terrors of the sea. They demanded a ransom of 20 talents of silver. Caesar laughed in their faces. He told them, 20? If you knew who I was, you'd ask for 50. For 38 days, Caesar treated the pirate ship like his personal vacation home. He wrote poems and speeches and forced the pirates to listen to them. If they didn't look impressed enough, he'd call them illiterate savages. He even played sports with them, but always warned them with a smile. "Once I'm free, I'm going to come back and crucify every single one of you." The pirates thought he was hilarious. They got their 50 talents, let him go, and probably had a good laugh about that crazy Roman. Shocking fact, Caesar wasn't joking. He immediately raised a private fleet, tracked them down, took his 50 talents back, took their loot too, and crucified them all. He was a man of his word, especially when that word involved revenge. Back in Rome, the Senate was a mess. It was controlled by old, grumpy conservatives who hated anyone with new ideas. Caesar knew he couldn't break them alone. So, he formed the First Triumvirate, basically the Avengers of Roman politics, but with more stabbing. First, there was Crassus. He was the richest man in Rome. How rich? He had his own private fire brigade. If your house was on fire, he'd refuse to put it out unless you sold him the land for a penny. Then there was Pompey the Great. He was the ultimate general. He had cleared the seas of pirates and conquered the East. He had the muscles. Crassus had the money. Caesar was the glue. He married his daughter, Julia, to Pompey to seal the deal. With their support, Caesar became consul. He used legal and very illegal methods to pass laws, even having his supporters dump a bucket of poop on his co-consul's head during a public meeting. No, seriously, that happened. To truly rule Rome, Caesar needed a triumph, a massive parade for a victorious general. And for a triumph, you need a war. Caesar got himself appointed governor of Gaul, modern-day France. For 8 years, Caesar went on a rampage. He fought millions of Gauls, Germanic tribes, and even crossed the sea to Britain twice just to see what was there. He wasn't just fighting, he was writing. Every few months, he sent back the Gallic Wars, updates written in the third person to make him sound like a legendary hero. He became filthy rich from loot and slaves. But his success terrified the Senate. Crassus had died in the East. Legend says the Parthians poured molten gold down his throat to mock his greed. And Julia, the link between Caesar and Pompey, died in childbirth. The alliance was dead. The Senate told Pompey, "Caesar is a monster. If he comes back with his army, he'll kill us all. You have to stop him." In 49 BC, the Senate sent Caesar an ultimatum: disband your army and come to Rome for trial, or be declared an enemy of the state. Caesar knew that if he walked into Rome without his soldiers, he'd be mysteriously assassinated within a week. He marched his 13th legion to the Rubicon, a tiny river that marked the border of Italy. No general was allowed to cross it with an army. To do so was a declaration of civil war. Caesar sat on his horse, stared at the water, and supposedly quoted a Greek play, Alia iacta estate, the die is cast. Pompey and the Senate were so scared they didn't even try to defend Rome. They fled to Greece. Caesar walked into Rome, took the keys to the treasury, and then chased Pompey across the world. He defeated Pompey at Pharsalus, but Pompey escaped to Egypt, only to be beheaded by the Egyptian king who wanted to impress Caesar. Caesar was furious. "Nobody kills a Roman general but me," he yelled. and then he stayed in Egypt for a while to consult with a young queen named Cleopatra. Caesar returned to Rome as dictator for life. He was at the peak. He fixed the calendar. He gave land to the poor. He even put his own face on coins, something only gods and kings did. But the Senate couldn't take it anymore. A group of 60 senators, led by Brutus, a man Caesar treated like a son, decided that the only way to save the Republic was to kill the man who was fixing it. On March 15th, 44 BC, they lured him to a meeting. They surrounded him, pulling daggers from their togas. They stabbed him 23 times. The most heartbreaking part? When Caesar saw Brutus among the killers, he supposedly stopped fighting, pulled his toga over his head, and accepted his fate. The assassins ran into the streets, shouting, "Liberty! Freedom!" The irony: the people didn't want liberty from the Senate. They wanted Caesar. The Senate had forgotten that the Republic only worked for the rich. By killing Caesar, they started a new civil war that ended with Caesar's heir, Augustus, becoming the first emperor.
I didn't just take control of Rome. I shattered the old world so a new one could rise. Once, I was nothing more than a man drowning in debt, a gambler who risked everything, but I played the greatest game in history, and I won. Some say I saved a dying republic. Others call me the tyrant who killed democracy itself. So tell me, who am I in your eyes? A savior or a destroyer? Leave your answer in the comments, and remember to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Unless you'd prefer I send the 13th Legion to pay you a visit.